Book of Heaven, Volume 14, Part 6. June 1st, 1922. Jesus before Pilate. What the truth is. Finding myself in my usual state, I was following the hours of the passion of my sweet Jesus, especially when he was presented to Pilate, who asked him what his kingdom was. And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, that was the first time in my terrestrial life that I dealt with a Gentile authority who asked me what my kingdom was. And I answered him that my kingdom is not of this world, for if it were of this world, thousands of legions of angels would defend me. But with this, I opened my kingdom to the Gentiles, and communicated to them my celestial doctrines, so much so that Pilate asked me, 'What, you are a king?' And immediately I answered him, 'I am king, and I have come into the world to teach the truth.' With this I wanted to make my way into his mind in order to make myself known, so much so that, as though struck, he asked me, 'What is the truth?' But he did not wait for my answer. I did not have the good of making myself understood. I would have said to him, 'The truth is I. Everything in me is truth. Truth is my patience in the midst of so many insults. Truth is my sweet gaze among so many derisions, calumnies, contempts. Truths are my affable, attractive manners in the midst of so many enemies, such that, while they hate me, I love them. And while they want to give me death, I want to embrace them and give them life. Truths are my words, dignified and full of celestial wisdom. Everything in me is truth. The truth is more than majestic sun, that as much as one would want to trample it, rises more beautiful, more luminous, such as to shame the very enemies, and to knock them down at its feet. Pilate asked me with sincerity of heart, and I was ready to answer him, while Herod asked me with malice and out of curiosity, and I did not answer. So, to those who want to know holy things with sincerity, I reveal myself more than they expect. But with those who want to know them with malice and out of curiosity, I hide myself. And while they want to make fun of me, I confound them and make fun of them. However, since my person carried the truth with itself, it performed its office also in front of Herod. My silence at the stormy questions of Herod, my modest gaze, the air of my person, all full of sweetness, of dignity, of nobility, were all truths, and operating truths. June 6, 1922. By living in the divine will, cross and sanctity become similar to those of Jesus. I was thinking to myself, how is it that my good Jesus has changed with me? Before, he would be all delighted in letting me suffer. Everything was participation in nails and cross. Now, everything has vanished. He no longer delights in letting me suffer. And if sometimes I suffer, he looks at me with such indifference. He no longer shows that taste of the past. Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, sighing, told me, "My daughter, when there are superior tastes, minor tastes lose their delight, their attractiveness, and therefore one looks at them with indifference. The cross binds grace, but who nourishes it? Who makes it grow to the proper stature? My will. My will alone completes everything and allows my highest designs to be accomplished in the soul. If it wasn't for my will, even the cross, as much power and greatness as it contains, can cause souls to remain only halfway. Oh, how many suffer! But since the continuous nourishment of my will is missing, they do not reach the destination, the undoing of the human will. And the divine will cannot give the last blow, the final brushstroke of divine sanctity. See, you say that nails and cross have vanished. False, my daughter, false. Before, your cross was small, incomplete. Now, as my will elevates you into my will, your cross becomes large, and each act you do in my volition is a nail that your will receives. And as you live in my will, yours extends so much as to diffuse you in each creature, and for each one of them it gives me that life which I gave them, so as to render me the honor, the glory, the purpose for which I created her. See, your cross extends not only for you, but for each creature. Therefore I see your cross everywhere. Before, I saw it only in you. Now, I see it everywhere. You're fusing yourself in my will, with no personal interest, but only to give me that which all should give me, and to give to everyone all the good that my will contains, is only of the divine life, not of the human. So my will alone is that which forms this divine sanctity in the soul. On the other hand, your previous crosses were human sanctity, and that which is human, as holy as it may be, is incapable of doing great things, but small ones, and even less can it elevate the soul to the sanctity and to the fusion with the operating of her Creator. She remains always in the restriction of a creature. But my will, knocking down all human barriers, flings her into the divine immensity, and everything becomes immense in her. Cross, nails, sanctity, love, reparation, everything. My goal in you was not the human sanctity, although it was necessary to first do the small things in you, and this is why I delighted so much. Now, as I made you go beyond, and having to make you live in my volition, and seeing your littleness, your atom, embrace immensity in order to give me love and glory for all and for each one, to render me all the rights of the whole creation, this delights me so much that all other things give me no taste any more. Therefore your cross, your nails, shall be my will, that keeping yours crucified shall complete the true crucifixion in you, not at intervals, but perpetual, fully similar to mine, as I was conceived crucified and died crucified. My cross was nourished by the eternal will alone, and therefore I was crucified for all and for each one. My cross marked everyone with its emblem. June 9th, 1922. Jesus wants to rest in the soul. Everything in him is merciful love, As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus would come very often, and sometimes he would lean his head upon mine, telling me, "My daughter, I need rest. The uncreated intelligence wants to rest in the created intelligence. But in order to find true rest, I should find in your intelligence all the glory and the contentment that all other intelligences should give me. Therefore, my will wants to expand your capacity to be able to find this rest. No, I am not content if my will does not place in you everything that others should give me." So he seemed to breathe over my intelligence, and it remained as though chained by many threads of light. For as many created minds as came out of the hands of our Creator, and each thread of light said, "Glory, gratitude, honor to my God thrice holy." And Jesus said, "Ah, yes, now I can rest. I find the requital of the intelligence of creation. The created mind is fused with the uncreated mind." Afterwards, he leaned his head upon my heart, and it seemed that he could not find complete rest. So he placed his mouth upon my heart and breathed into it. At each breath, my heart became larger. Then he added, "Daughter, I am determined to rest. Therefore I want to breathe into your heart so much as to place in it all the love that all the rest of creation should give me. My rest cannot be perfect if I do not find the requital of the love that came out of me. Therefore, I want to find in this heart the love that all should give me. My volition shall make this prodigy in you, and your heart shall have a note for every one that says to me, 'Love.'" Then he leaned his head upon my heart again and rested. How beautiful it was to see Jesus resting! Then he would disappear and come back. And now he wanted to rest on my hands. Now on my shoulder. It seemed that he wanted to see whether my whole person was fit to let him rest. Afterwards he told me, "My beloved, how much love I feel toward you. All the love that I should give to others, and that they refuse, I centralize in you. In you, I hear the echo of my creative word, 'Let us make man in our image and likeness.' And I see the fulfillment of it. Ah, our will alone shall make man return to his first origin. Our will shall cast all the divine impressions into the human will, and overwhelming one will within the other, it shall carry him on its wings into the arms of his Creator, not ugly as sin rendered him, but pure and beautiful and similar to his Creator. Therefore I want you to receive all the impressions of my will into yours, so that heaven and earth may recognize nothing but divine will alone acting in you, by which they shall feel as though confounded, and all shall receive the good of the divine operating in the creature. Therefore, be ready in everything, and be faithful to me." After this he came back again, but all afflicted, and he told me, "I feel sad when they think that I am severe, and that I make more use of justice than of mercy. They act with me as if I were to strike them at each circumstance. Oh, how dishonored I feel by these ones. In fact, this leads them to remain at due distance from me, and one who is distant cannot receive all the fusion of my love. And while they are the ones who do not love me, they think that I am severe and almost a being that strikes fear, while by just taking a look at my life, they can but notice that I did only one act of justice, when in order to defend the house of my father, I took the ropes and snapped them to the right and to the left, to drive out the profaners. Everything else, then, was all mercy. Mercy, my conception, my birth, my words, my works, my steps, the blood I shed, my pains. Everything in me was merciful love. Yet they fear me, while they should fear themselves more than me. June 11th, 1922. The natural life symbolizes the spiritual life. I was thinking to myself, how is it that the spiritual life also undergoes so many changes? While one is convinced that this must be his life, then, when he least expects it, he is flung somewhere else, dragging along who knows how many painful repercussions that make the heart bleed. It can be said that because of the so many changes that one goes through, it is a continuous martyrdom. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, indeed the spiritual life must be a continuous martyrdom, because it must be similar to the first and greatest of martyrs, that is, myself. And if it were not so, it cannot be given the true name of spiritual life, but larva and shadow of it. Then it is necessary for it to undergo various changes, and this in order to make it reach the proper stature, and to render it noble, beautiful, and perfect. If the human nature itself, which is less important, undergoes who knows how many changes in order to reach the proper stature, much more so the spiritual, that is more important than natural life, and superior to it. Even more, the natural symbolizes the spiritual. Observe a little bit. How many changes does the natural life go through? It is conceived inside the maternal womb, and there it remains for as many as 9 months to form the little body. And when it is formed, it is forced to come out. And if it wanted to remain inside, it would die, because lacking the space to grow, it would suffocate, jeopardizing its life and that of the mother. Now, if this conception were formed outside of the maternal womb, who would provide the blood and the heat in order to form the little body? Moreover, since the members are extremely tender, the air itself would kill it. How much caution is not needed with the little newborn? The heat, the cold, the very narrowness of the maternal womb can be deadly for him. And therefore, swaddling clothes, cradle, milk. If one wanted to give him some other food, the little one would not be able to chew it, so his life would be put in danger. But then the time also comes when he becomes capable of taking food. The swaddling clothes are removed, and he learns to take a few steps. Do you see? We are only at his infancy, and he has already gone through 3 changes. Now, what would one say if this little one, seeing himself placed on the ground, to let him take the first step, in fear of being snatched from the arms of his mamma, screamed, cried, and refused to have any of it. One would feel sorry for him, because in the arms of his mamma he would never become a man. Without motion, he would not become strong nor developed. Now let us come to the true spiritual life. It is conceived in my womb. My blood, my love, and my breath form it. Then I feed it at my breast. I swaddle it with my graces. Then I move on to make it walk with my truths. However, with this, my design is not to form a child for fun, but to form a copy fully similar to myself. And this is why the changes come in, for nothing other than to let it reach a mature age and give it all those privileges and prerogatives that the true spiritual life contains. Otherwise it would remain like a baby in swaddling clothes, who instead of forming my honor and my glory, would form my sorrow and dishonor. And how many are those who remain only newborn, or swaddled at most? Very few are those who work together with me to make of them a copy of myself. June 15th, 1922. The divine heartbeat is the little cell of the soul who lives in the divine will, and it harmonizes everything in the creature. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking about the holy will of God, and while I was fusing myself in it, my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, my eternal will was the central point of my life. From the first act of my conception up to my last breath, it preceded me, it accompanied me, making itself life of my act, and it followed me, enclosing my act in the eternal sphere of my will, from which I could find no way out. And since my eternal will was immense, there was not one point that it would not encircle, nor generation in which it would not dominate. So it was as though natural for it to form my acts, and to multiply them for all, as if they were for one alone. An individual can give only what he possesses. As much power as he may contain, he cannot give more than what he possesses. Now, my will possessed the immensity, the power of the multiplication of acts into as many as it wanted, the eternity into which it drew all things present to everyone, as in the beginning of all things, so until the end. This is why, from the first moment of my conception, the power of my will formed as many conceptions for as many creatures as would come into existence. It multiplied my words, thoughts, works, steps, and extended them from the first to the last man. The power of the eternal volition converted my blood, my pains, into immense seas, of which all could avail themselves. If it wasn't for the prodigy of the supreme will, my very redemption would have been individual, circumscribed, and only for a few generations. Now, my will has not changed. What it was, it is, and shall be. More so since, I myself having come upon earth, I came to tie again the divine will to the human. For the one who does not escape from this tie, and places herself at the mercy of the divine will, letting herself be preceded, accompanied, and followed, enclosing her act inside my volition, what happened to me happens to the soul, See, as you were fusing your thoughts, your words, your works, your reparations, your little love in my will, I extended them, I multiplied them, and they made themselves antidote for each thought, for each word, for each work, reparation for each offense, and love for each love that is due to me. And if this does not happen, it is the fault of the human will, that not abandoning itself completely prey to the divine will, does not take everything, nor can it give itself to everyone. Therefore it feels the sensations of what is human that make it unhappy, circumscribe it, impoverish it, and render it partial. This is the reason for all my interest, that your will live life in mine, and that you understand well what it means to live in it, as much as it is possible for a creature. Because if you do this, you shall have obtained everything, and shall give me everything. Having said this, he disappeared, but later he came back again, and made himself seen all wounded. By those wounds formed many little cells, in which Jesus called souls, to enclose them in them and keep them safe. So I said to him, "My love, what about my little cell? Where is it, so that I may enclose myself in it, never to go out again?" And Jesus, "My daughter, for you there are no little cells in my body, because the one who lives in my will cannot live in one apartment of mine, but must live in the beating of my heart. The heartbeat is the center and the life of the human body. If the heartbeat ceases, life ceases. The heartbeat maintains the blood circulation, the heat, the breathing, and therefore the strength, the activity of the members. If the heartbeat is not regular, all the human faculties are in disorder. Even the intelligence loses liveliness, ingenuity, the fullness of the intellectual light. In fact, in creating man, I placed a special sound in his heart, to which I bound the eternal harmony, in such a way that if the heartbeat is healthy, everything is in harmony in the creature. Now, my will is like the heartbeat in the creature. If it palpitates, sanctity harmonizes, the virtues harmonize. She harmonizes between heaven and earth. Her harmony extends up to the sacrosanct Trinity. This is why for you there is my heartbeat, that offers itself as little cell to enclose you in it, and so that, palpitating with one single heartbeat, you may harmonize between heaven and earth, circulate in the past, in the present, and in the future. Be present in everything. You circulating in me, and I in you. June 19th, 1922. Every time the soul operates in the divine will, she gives God the field to put out new beatitudes and new contentments. Continuing in my usual state, I felt sunken in the supreme volition of my sweet Jesus. It seemed to me that each little act of mine, done in the divine will, made new contentments come out from within the divine majesty. And my lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, I possess such contentments, happinesses, and beatitudes, that I could give ever new joys and beatitudes at each instant. So every time the soul operates in my will, she gives me the field to put out new beatitudes and new contentments that I possess. And since my will is immense and invades everyone and everything, as they come out, They flow over the soul who is operating in my will, as the primary cause for which my beatitudes are released, and then they circulate in everyone, both in heaven and on earth. Therefore, as many times as you operate in my will, so many more beatitudes and joys do you let me put out, and I feel the contentment of sharing the joys that I possess. My will wants to put out what it possesses, but it keeps looking for the one who would give it the occasion, the one who is disposed to receive, the one who prepares a little space in her soul in which to place these new contentments of mine. Now, by wanting to do my will, the soul opens the doors of my volition, and emptying herself of her own volition, she prepares a little space for me in which to place my goods. And as she enters into my will to operate, she gives me the occasion to issue new beatitudes from myself. Therefore, I anxiously await the soul to come to operate in my eternal volition, in order to unleash a new joy from myself, and make myself known as that God who is never exhausted, and who has always something to give to the one who does my will. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 14, Part 6. Fiat.